Hello everyone, my name is Dimitri and I'm the developer of InfraNodus insight generation system based on text network analysis and visualization. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use InfraNodus for personal knowledge management so that you can collect and curate your ideas and then connect them together and finally publish them in some form, be it research or implementing them into your project. I will show you the workflow that I usually use so you can follow the same steps. But you can also use a lot of the different functions in InfraNodus to actually develop your own workflows. So first of all, I will create a new graph and I will start collecting information. I'll just call it PKM. And then I will start from typing a few keywords that I want to make the research about. Actually, I want to write an article for the website that we run, Nodus Labs. So I'm just going to collect some ideas about this topic. Personal knowledge management systems. Add this into the graph. As you can see, every word is visualized as a node and every co-occurrence is the connection. So then there are several ways that I could proceed. One way is to use the built-in OpenAI GPT-3 language generation system, which analyzes the graph and generates relevant research questions in relation to the topic. So for example, here it's asking something about organizational expectations and organizational knowledge and how does the management of knowledge affect the personal experience of employees at work. So I can take one of those questions as inspiration and write that personal knowledge management is used at organizations to keep track of the resources and information. Add this into the graph. As you can see, this additional text is visualized and we already see the connections, organization, management, tracking. Okay, let's say I want some new inspiration, so I can click on generate questions again, add some more interesting ideas that are generated by the AI based on the research questions it's asking me, or I can also use Google. So this is what I usually do. I just want to have an overview of what already exists in this field. So then I'm going to go and select personal knowledge management system and then click this button. And what happens now is that it copied all the words that I chose in the graph that I'm interested in. So it's personal knowledge management. And it's going to save it as an additional graph so I can compare the discourse that exists to what I've been writing and see how I can cover as much of the existing discourse as possible so I can make a good introduction. Here, as you can see, I have those nodes selected, so I remove them from the graph so I can see the context that they appear in. I see that also the term PKM is used, so I can just write that PKM is short for personal knowledge management. So this is another node that I'm adding into my original graph. And as you can see, as I'm adding the nodes are highlighted on the graph, so I can see how much of the existing discourse I'm covering. Okay, so then let's say I want to remove PKM from the graph as well and see what else I can write about. If I don't want to use the graph, I can also use the analytics panel, which will give me some ideas about the main topics that exist in this discourse. What happened here is that InfraNodus imported the top search results for personal knowledge management from Google, and it visualizes them as a graph. So I can see, what are the main topics that already exist. Here it says that learning software is quite prominent term, so I can select these terms and see in which context it was used. Here it's about lifelong learning, software engineering. Okay, let's see, learning person. So a personal knowledge management system is what a person is using to learn. So, okay, this can be an interesting idea to add into my box of ideas. I can write that personal knowledge management systems can be used by any person to learn new things and to organize their ideas. Okay, add this into the graph. As you can see, when I remove the selection, those nodes that I already mentioned in my discourse are covered with blue, but there is a lot more left that are uncovered. So for example, here I see the word capture, which reminds me that one of the important elements of personal knowledge management is to actually create a system for capturing information and ideas. So then I can say, okay, PKM systems are used to capture information. Then I can also see the words storing and sharing. So I can write store it and share it with others. Okay, as you can see, I have more words. Actually, share was not selected just because I wrote share, not sharing. So now I will write sharing and reset the graph. And then I can see that, okay, I covered all those main nodes. Then I also like this node with the framework on it. So here I can open a little bit more and see where it's used. Okay, so here I have a topic on framework development. So I can say that there are many different frameworks that exist in the field of personal knowledge management. As you can see this word, there are also many software tools that can be used for personal knowledge management. Okay, add this into the graph. And as you can see, I'm covering mostly the central concepts. Now it's time to switch to the periphery. When I explain how this approach works, I like to use the image that we have here on the front page of InfraNodus, where we go through the 4 stages of a process when we're thinking. So we start from disrupted ideas, focusing on singularities. Then we start gathering more and more of them and then making connections between them. Then at some point we start diversifying them, so we start to switch to the different topics, going deeper into specific realms. So we again focus on singularities. We somehow zoom in again, but this time on the multiplicity that we have. And then we go back into disrupting ideas, disconnecting them, finding the gaps, making new connections. So this is the same approach that we try to use in InfraNodus when we're navigating the graph of ideas, is that gradually we're using the graph to connect all of them together. For instance, here I see that there is a periphery part here which is talking about Obsidian and Zettelkasten. So I can say that one of the frameworks used in personal knowledge management is Zettelkasten nodes. Way to collect and organize nodes based on their relevancy. Okay, and then I can also see some examples of the software used for personal knowledge management: Obsidian, Roam Research, and standard note-taking apps. Okay, add this into the graph. As you can see, I covered most of the stuff that exists on Google on that topic. So that gives me a good feeling that I'm kind of speaking about the things that everyone is talking about, and I'm not going to miss anything out. Now it's time to generate some more ideas. And the approach that you can use here is that you can actually come back to the original graph. If you click here on result, because now we were interpreting and now we're on the result page, get all the removed nodes back into the graph so we can see everything that we wrote about. By the way, you also have some nice display options here that you can make all the nodes appear, not only the most relevant ones, but everything. So you see a nice picture of what you've been talking about. And now you can use the AI again to actually direct you to the parts of the discourse that should be connected but are not yet. And for instance here, it's recommending to generate a connection between this cluster, organizing nodes, and PKM, Roam, and so on. You can also use the analytics panel here, go to the inside, and look at the structural gap. So the parts that could be connected but are not, but from the other part of the graph. Here you can generate a research question based on them. And here we can talk about what are the effects of management techniques on information, such as knowledge and information. What are the implications of rapid development of information technologies and systems of management? So we can add something about organizational knowledge. we can say that an organization may have a system in place that helps it organize knowledge and provide easy access to all information that is contained within the organization. Add this into the graph. It's visualized here, and you can also use the graph manually. As soon as you see two clusters, for example this one and that one, that are not connected but should be connected, you can also select those nodes, organize nodes person, so some kind of idea of organizing yourself using nodes, and then organizational information, and see if there is any connection between. So I select them and click on generate research questions and generate more ideas. So for example, how can a person's organizational skills affect their work performance? How do the standard and the Rome compare to the person in terms of organizing? I think it's talking about Rome research here. So we can regenerate questions, add more stuff in. What are the benefits of using the same system to organize and store nodes as a standardized system of measurement? Okay, so some kind of idea of metrics, but actually I like this idea of using the same system to organize and store nodes. So I can talk a little bit more about the software that is used. As you can see, I don't have to answer all those questions directly. I would rather just go through, some of the ideas that they bring me towards. And in this case, I want to talk about the different software tools or the different knowledge systems. So for example, I can say that there are many different frameworks and tools, software tools, that exist to organize knowledge. I can say that one popular tool is Obsidian, that helps you organize your nodes and make connections between them. Okay, so it's just to remember to actually talk about Obsidian. And then also what I can say is that there are multiple frameworks that are used to organize knowledge. Most of them focus on a 4-step process. So we will use this idea of the second brain. Collect, organize, distill, express. Add this into the graph, and as you can see here, I'm talking a lot about organizing. This is the biggest node on the graph, knowledge, organization, and so on. What's great is if I ever decide to come back to this graph later and see what I've been writing about and what I've been thinking about, I can easily click on those nodes here. So for example, information, resources, and tracking, and see exactly the node that actually talks about these 3 topics. So I always know what are the entrance points into my discourse, and I have a possibility to find them really quick, which is really nice. Another thing that I can do at this point is to get some more inspiration. So for instance, now that I have this idea of personal knowledge, so let's say I type in the search query actually here, personal knowledge management. Select this on the graph. You can also add system, why not? And then I want to get more inspiration. And what I can do here is that I can add an external file. So I will click on the plus here, say that I want to import a text file. And in fact, it's going to be a markdown file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the ideas I had in my Obsidian vault, which you can see here. I just need to find, let's see where it is in Obsidian. So I had this article on personal knowledge management systems, which is in the folder called projects InfraNodus. And this is the article. So I'll just take this one file for now to demonstrate how it works. And here I will ask it to visualize all the wiki links, but also all the concepts I use in the text. So not only the connections I made in the notes, but the actual the actual words that I've been using in this graph. And I save it into this context, which I was using to get the external inspiration. So I'm adding now this information to the Google search results for this topic. And here I have it visualized again. I can remove the most relevant terms so I can see what's hiding behind them. And also let's get rid of this. And maybe also the name of the article itself. Let's get rid of it. So it's nice because you can select the nodes and delete them from the graph. And now let's look into the actual graph that we have here. So I will just make the labels a little bit smaller. I think we can also remove organize and capture because we wrote about this already. So we see that there is some periphery here which is not covered yet by the new text that we're writing. And this is talking about connecting, creating, interesting. So I can click on those and see others more interesting to organize. We don't know what to do when we have the notes and ideas. Step is to create something. Okay, so this is the idea that I've been writing about, is that it's okay to organize and to collect information, but what do we do when we actually want to write something? And this can be a nice challenge to add to our original text. So for example, I can say that it's important to not only provide the tools to collect and organize knowledge, but to also express it. And many existing tools are not designed for it. Because basically we can put all the nodes together, but it's quite difficult to write inside those tools. So maybe it could be interesting to invent something that could also be a nice editor as well. I can also write about connecting ideas. So for example, I can say that InfraNodus can be used to connect ideas and to extract interesting insights from the already existing texts. Those connections can then be put into a narrative. Okay, add this. As you can see now, I have more nodes selected here, but I still have some periphery here where I'm talking about the different approaches, I think, like Zettelkasten or Andy Montoschalk. So I can say that a good personal knowledge management system may have different frameworks available. For example, evergreen nodes or code of the second brain. Code is the create, collect, organize, distill, express, and so on. So I'm kind of adding some notes to myself to write more about the different methodologies used. I can write even Zettelkasten, Montoschalk methodology and add it as hashtags. This is also possible to do it that way. Then we can also see what other clusters we miss out. For instance, here we have something about development. So how to develop the systems. Okay, we can write something about this, building, and so on. So basically, this is how we would create a graph. And then once we're happy with the nodes that we took, then we go into the final result. And the visualization is here. Again, we can use the AI to recommend some interesting research questions in relation to this discourse. So you can add more information on top of your existing nodes. Or if you want to start writing things, you can use the interpret feature, and then you would write a more coherent text on top of the existing nodes. And you would basically follow the same process, that you would try to cover as much of this original graph as possible. But what I'm going to show you first is something a little bit different. It's how I can actually export all this data into another tool. Let's say, you want to have some of those ideas developed in Obsidian. So what would you do? First of all, you can of course just save this as a text, but maybe there are some ideas that you would like to save as the wiki-links already inside InfraNodus. And this is possible. You would just do the following. First, I would select some of the nodes that seem relevant. So for example, in this case, collecting nodes. And then I click on the link button and I call this node collecting nodes. Okay, now it becomes one node. Then I can make a separate node for software tools. And I include all of these three inside. So, and then write software tools. So this is another important part of my discourse. As you can see, then this node becomes connected to everything that the three ones before were connected to. And then I can also write something about interesting ideas, so generating ideas. Select these two nodes, click here, and then rename it generating ideas. This becomes another important cluster. Okay, and then maybe I can also add something about research tools. So, okay, PKM tools, personal knowledge management tools here. Okay, another node. And I guess maybe that's it. Maybe there's something about here also, information inside an organization. So I can write that organizational knowledge. And again, add this as a single node. Okay, and what happens here is that now I have all those topics, all those new phrases shown in the graph here. So I have an organizational knowledge topic here. Then I have something about collecting nodes and the frameworks that I used, software tools, and generating ideas. So this represents the four main elements of my discourse. And if I now export it as a text graph, I can actually export blocks with topics. And what's going to happen, I'm going to show you this file. Just opening it with a text editor. As you can see here, I actually have each block with the topic that it belongs to. So this is really great because you just automatically tagged all the content that you had with the new wiki-links. And then if you, let's say, add this node here, you see you already have the actual, actual nodes in the graph connected to it. So this is how you would add all these different nodes automatically. Now I lost the graph a little bit, but it doesn't matter. The point is that, yes, you can easily, here it is, you can easily copy and paste your information into another tool, and you already have everything, neatly marked with the topics that you identified using the topic modeling features that exist inside InfraNodus based on text network analysis. Now, the last step of this workflow is to actually go into the interpretation part. So let's say, I have all those ideas, great. I can save this graph with topics in case I want to come back, overview with topics in case I ever want to come back to it. It's going to be available here from the list. And now, if I click on interpret, this is when I can start writing a proper narrative on top of the existing text. Okay, so here is this graph again, but in its original shape. Let's remove all the nodes that we added into the stop list and reload the graph so we can see it fully with all the different nodes inside. And now, when we switch to the interpret panel here, we can actually start writing on top of the existing text. And the way that it happens is that you're trying to kind of add a more coherent narrative on top of your original nodes. So if the original nodes are here, I think if you click here, you see the original nodes, and you see the graph here, then now when you will be writing, you will be covering this existing discourse or all the different points that you want to mention in your article. You'll be writing about them and then writing on top of the existing graph. So this is how it would work. First, I would start from the main concepts that are right in the center. So for example, I would say that personal knowledge management systems are used to organize, to collect, organize, and organize information. Okay, add this into the graph. As you can see, what I just added now gets covered with gray. So that means that, that I covered this discourse here. Then I can say that okay, systems are used for learning and also for maintaining organizational knowledge databases. Add this into the graph. You see we have a little bit more. Most became systems are based on a simple framework. Collect, organize, distill, express. We can also rephrase it by saying that the first step is to collect or capture. The second step is to curate and make selections. The third step is to find connections between the nodes. The fourth step is to put them into a coherent discourse, a narrative. Add this into the graph, and as you can see now we covered most of the ideas here. Now we can remove the most influential nodes to see what we still didn't cover. So here I see that I'm talking about the tools that exist and also give some examples of which tools those can be. Then it means I want to add this information inside the graph. So I can say, go back to the interpretation overlay, and let's say some of the most popular tools allow users to go through all the stages of knowledge management, from collecting to publishing their ideas. Okay, for example, some of the more popular tools are Obsidian, Roam Research, RamNode. Some people also like to use their standard note-taking apps. Or their Google Docs and Evernote. We can also connect several tools together to create our own personal knowledge management system. Add this into the graph. As you can see, I covered almost all the topics that were there. There's a little cluster here where I'm talking about the methodologies. Okay, so maybe I could also mention something about this. There are several methodologies for note-taking. Among them are the Zettelkast method and the Mantushalk evergreen notes. I will elaborate on this later, but as you can see now we connected this little cluster which was disconnected from the graph to the main graph. So now we covered most of the discourse. Here there's a little bit left about organizational knowledge and how it could be used inside an organization. So for example, personal knowledge management systems could also be used within organizations to store and share knowledge and information to all the stakeholders, both internally and externally. Okay, now I have my text, and if I want, I can continue writing here, or I can export it as plain text and then use an editor of my choice to put it into design or to publish it on a website. So this is how it works. Try it out on infranodus.com and let me know if this workflow works for you. If you find some other workflow, I would be also really curious to hear if you use it in a different way. And in the next videos, I'm going to show how you can use InfraNodus to visualize the content that you created with other tools like Obsidian or Roam Research, and how you can actually integrate all the ideas from all the different tools inside one graph, and then use the graph visualization feature to see what are the gaps in your knowledge, what are the gaps in your thoughts, and what kind of ideas or research questions you could generate to connect all those gaps, all those ideas together. So check it out on infranodus.com and hope to see you soon.